thank you very much, everybody. We might take a little minute here to get the sound sorted out. I think we have a few squeaks here and there. This is incredible to stand up here in front of all of you guys and see lots of new faces, lots of old faces. It's very exciting for me. Are you guys excited? Sorry? That's better. Come on. This is going to be an amazing day. Douglas talked a little bit about, Douglas I'm going to go through my notes here because the things I was going to say, Douglas has kind of said a little bit. But we can do them again. It's okay. So, thank you very much for coming, everybody. It is lovely to see some new faces. I think the ballot is really, really a great thing to get some new people in. Is there anyone here who's never tasted Octomore before? Really? Okay. So you guys at the back with your hands up, you're going to be the guinea pigs for today, okay? Because this Event Horizon, you will not remember what life was like before, okay? You'll be like the rest of us. You'll be like the rest of us. No memory of what life was like before. Octomore, by its very nature, is quite a complicated beast. So I've got quite a lot of notes here that I will need to refer to. A little cheat sheet, so we've got ppms, we've got ages, we've got lots of information here, so if I do need to zone in on some of these drams because they're quite complicated, please bear with me. So yeah, a couple of things. Obviously, we're broadcasting to literally tens of people on the internet just now. Please, yes, they'll be very keen to see what we're up to. There's some great stuff. We're going to do some bingo. So I'll be calling the numbers later on, just make it more interesting. But a little Octomore broadcast bingo. So there'll be some things that'll be happening for the people who are out watching, both of them. So we'll see those as we go. There are a few people. I do know that there's a few people watching. I hope. I spoke to Lewis, one of the guys who was building the stage here yesterday. He said he might be watching. So Lewis, thank you very much for building this. It's okay so far. I don't know where he put the trapdoor, but it's in here somewhere, he assured me. So we'll find that later on as well. Also to Patrick Marchand, our operations director. I know Patrick's a really big Octomore fan. Patrick, hello. We'll see you here next year for the festival next year. He's going to come and visit us next year, which will be good. So hello, Patrick. And to my daughters, Emily and Rosie, who are sitting at home, if you guys are watching, well done, Nana, for finding the iPad. No idea where it was a little while ago. Good. So a few people we need to say hello to. As well, some special guests in the room. We have with us today Valerie, the CEO of Remy Control. Some lovely smiley faces in front of us here. Valerie, it's a real pleasure to have you with us today on a really special day for the distillery. The open day is always a fantastic day. Personally, I'd like to thank you for coming because usually I get very, very nervous doing this with Douglas and Simon sitting here. And now, next year, it'll not seem as daunting because you're here this year, so thank you very much. I'm sure we'll all enjoy the day as well. I mean, the weather, of course, we can't do much about. Would you believe that for the last, 9 weeks, we've had very little rain? We've had to stop production. So for the last few weeks, we've been praying for rain. So warehouse boys up here, will know every morning I've come in. Oh, lovely day today. Yeah. Lovely day. So we've been praying for rain so we can make whiskey. So although, that we have a few what we'll refer to as water features in the warehouse today. You'll hear a few buckets dripping up the back there. A few water features, it's not the end of the world because we can make more whiskey with it. So we're not going to be too disappointed about the weather today. So, to see 250 people in this room is very impressive. A few months ago, I did a whiskey tasting in Sweden for 2,283 people. And I can tell you now, that was nothing compared to this. This is on home turf. At the distillery, doing this masterclass. The way this has gone over the years, going from Jim doing the masterclass to taking over. For me, this is a really, really special moment. So, although I didn't take that tasting lightly in Sweden, it was a pleasure to stand up in front of all these people and to talk about what we do. It was a really interesting tasting. To do it for 2,283 people, fantastic. But this, for me, this really gets my heart going to see all you guys here. So we've got some really good drams in store for you today. We can talk a little bit about Event Horizon. Douglas has kind of explained the idea behind that, but really the idea, the concept is that once you've tasted Octomore, then single malt whiskey is not the same anymore. It really isn't. And I think what we're going to do today is going to be quite educational. We're going to learn a lot. We're going to think a lot about the whiskey we're going to taste, and there's some good things to come through. So, our Event Horizon, when you think of the normal rules don't apply, the usual laws of physics do not apply when you go past that Event Horizon. When you taste Octomore for the first time, whiskey is different. It shouldn't work, but my God, is this an exciting whiskey. It really is. So, some great drams. I'll tell you a little bit about the drams we've got to taste. I'm going to keep you in suspense a little bit about some of them. We will taste as we go. Please don't dive in too soon. I know you guys maybe at the back thinking you might sneak a few drams, but please just bear with us. We'll all do this together. Octomore, for those of you who know, and for those of you who don't, Octomore has a numbering system, a way of describing all the things that we want to talk about with Octomore that we focus on. And over the years, we've kind of put this together. It's come together in a really lovely way. So our point one, the first expression, the point one, our kind of core expression of Octomore, the point one is a 5-year-old whiskey. It is cask strength. It is matured in American whiskey barrels. It's a wonderful, wonderful whiskey. Very, very high ppm. So the first dram we'll taste today is a point one. The second dram we'll taste a point two. So for each edition we'll do, whether it be 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, we'll have a 0.1, 0.2, 0.3. The 0.2 will be pretty much the same as the 0.1 in terms of its spirit distillation. It will be the same batch of spirit usually, but it will be a different type of cask. So we can show the way that Octomore behaves in different types of casks. We can showcase different types of spirit. We can make different whiskey by using different types of casks. The 0.2 we will taste today. It's quite a special 0.2. For those of you who've been drinking Octomore for a little while, you may remember 4.2, Comus. Anybody remember that? Yeah? This is Comus at 13 years. Okay? So this is going to be quite a special thing that we can see the influence. If you remember that whiskey, it was an incredible whiskey. It's still talked about today. People still, do you remember Comus? Oh, what a dram. Why can you not make something like that now? Not many people say that. So it's going to be really interesting to taste a 13-year-old Octomore. This will actually be the oldest Octomore available for you guys to taste. And it's only for this 250 people in the room, so very, very special. The third dram will be a 0.3. And 0.3 is about provenance. It is about barley that comes from Octomore Farm that we keep separate. So we make Octomore whiskey with barley grown on Octomore Farm, and that provenance, that soil, that terroir is just expressed in that whiskey. It is a single vintage. It is an amazing whiskey to make. And what we're going to taste today will be the 8.3. Okay, the 8.3 was peated to a record level of 309.1 ppm. The 0.1 is very, very important. That's really what makes it. This is going to be the 8.3, but again, with 2 more years maturation from when we released it, so it'll be interesting to come back and taste that again. The 0.4 is going to be a little bit of a mystery. I'm going to keep some details back on this one. The 0.4 is our virgin oak exploration. So using casks that have never been used for anything else before. Usually in the Scotch whisky industry, being Scottish, we're quite cheap. We don't want to spend lots of money, so we use casks from other people, okay? For us, we're interested in doing our own thing with the oak. So with the 0.4 expression, it's about virgin oak. We'll talk more about the 0.4 we're going to taste later on. Point 5 is something very, very special. Point 5 will be the, dram 5, not point 5. We haven't done a point 5. Confused? Yes, I'm confused. Dram 5 will be the Fish bottling, the 2019 Bruichladdich Festival bottling, a 12-year-old Octomore, matured 100% in sherry casks. So it will be the oldest Octomore bottling we've ever done, and the only one that is 100% in ex-sherry casks. The idea with this was to get a really powerful, really amazing whiskey for the day, and again, be patient, but when we get there, the point 5, the Dram 5 is incredible. And Dram 6. Dram 6 is something that is a bit of a privilege to me to be able to make, and it seems to be a bit of a theme. I'm making it a bit of a theme. For those of you who've been to the Masterclass before, you may know the last few years we start to, I've been doing the same kind of thing where we did OBA a few years ago, Octomore Black Art. Last year we did another Black Art expression. This year another Black Art expression. And it's an Octomore tasting. So something quite interesting. I did bow to pressure a couple of years ago, and we released the OBA. The OBA was only ever created for you guys to taste. And I bowed to pressure, and we actually bottled a very small amount. It was very, very cool to do. You demanded, there was T-shirts. People were demanding this whiskey was released, so we did. And it was nice to be able to be doing something like that. This one, we can't release, unless you shout loud enough. But no, we can't release. The whiskey for this is incredibly special. We cannot release it. So this is literally only for the day. So, hopefully that's whetted your appetite for a little bit of whiskey. I've been talking for about 10 minutes now, and nobody's had a dram, so well done. We've got a long day ahead of us, so we'll sip away on this. I think maybe now we should start to taste some whiskey. What do you think? Yeah? The loudest cheer of the day so far. Okay, so if you take glass number 1, so on the mat in front of you, we have 6 drams, obviously numbered, so you know which one is which. Let's take the first one. And this is going to be, for you guys at the back with your hands up to the first experience of Octomore, this is going to be something that your life will never be the same again. And let's think about why that would be. This whiskey, for those of you who haven't tasted Octomore before, this whiskey is undrinkable, okay? It is not good whiskey because it's only 5 years old. It is peated to 107 ppm, so that's way too peaty. No one can drink anything that peated. People who drink Islay whiskey like that, peated whiskey, from other distilleries, maybe it's peated to 40, 50 ppm. These guys are strange. These are weirdos who drink peated whiskey. These guys who go and drink Islay whiskey. So to drink something that's 107 ppm, it can't be done. And the other thing about this, the third reason this is undrinkable, it's too strong. This is bottled at 59.8% alcohol. So it's too young, too peaty, and too strong to drink. Okay, so just remember that, everybody. Because if we know anything about whiskey, older is better. Heavy peat is, again, for a weird branch of people who, go to Ireland and drink whiskey, like us. And again, it's too strong. You want to bottle your whiskey at 40%. That's the right strength to do it, So, 3 reasons why this is undrinkable. Let's have a little look at it. So if you give that a little bit of a whirl round in the glass, you can look at the color. It's a beautiful kind of pale color. You look at the way that coats the glass. You watch the legs come down, and as you nose that, you've got to be careful because, again, this is too peaty and too strong. So there's our first surprise. It's not too peaty. That is absolutely wonderfully fragrant. Okay, so you get lovely notes of citrus, of lemon. You get a lovely kind of vanilla from the American oak. You get peat smoke in there, but it's not overpowering. It's good. So, for those guys who haven't tasted Octomore before, we'll all do this with them, okay? We all raise our glass, take a little, we should have a little toast, shouldn't we? Slàinte, everybody. Slàinte bhá. Thanks, thanks, Michael. I knew there's a reason we invited you. I didn't know what it was, but I knew there would be something. So far. So, give that a bit of time. This undrinkable whiskey. Let's think about what we know about whiskey. Too strong, too young, too peaty. Not with this whiskey, not with Octomore. What we've created by releasing this 5-year-old spirit is something that has amazing texture. You know, the way that sits on your palate is opening up even now. That level of peat smoke that is so, so big, it doesn't dominate at all. That high strength, it's warming, you feel it, but when you drink, there's nothing aggressive, there's nothing burning. This is a beautifully soft spirit. So, we've come through the black hole. Here we are on the other side where whiskey, you know, it doesn't really mean what everybody else thinks it means. We're thinking about the fundamentals of making whiskey here. As a distillery, we have fundamental principles. When we distill slowly. We're in no rush to make whiskey for everyone in the world here. We make whiskey slowly. We only make as much as we make. If there's people out there who are banging down the door getting it, we're not going to increase and go faster and try and make whiskey more and more for everyone else. We make whiskey slowly. We make it properly. The varieties of barley, the farming methods, everything that we think of with the ingredients, we take huge care over. So we're using amazing ingredients. We're distilling slowly. The casks we're filling. Think about the casks, 5 years old, it's too young. Well, if you've made a really good spirit, and you age it for 5 years in a really good cask, would you not rather drink that spirit than something that's been distilled quickly? It's been rushed through the process to make a huge volume, and then it's been aged in a second or third or fourth fill cask because they're cheaper. Would you rather drink something where it's been made carefully, it's been thoughtfully made, the casks are really good? To me, I'm going to take this 5-year-old every single time. So, the conversation starts to change with Octomore. Start to think differently about whiskey. So, you guys at the back, do you remember life before? A couple of minutes ago? For anyone at the front, they don't remember a thing. They're like us now. They're like us. This moment of enlightenment, this thing that makes us think about whiskey is very, very special. So let's look back at this whiskey. Let's spend a little moment to think about the flavors, the tastes, because I've done some tasting notes, so I'd like to read them rather than forget about them like I always do. So, a lovely pale golden color. This, again, if you give this some movement in the glass and you look at the legs, look at the texture in that whiskey, the way that goes, because it's not been diluted at cask strength, that high strength. You've got all those oils from the barley, that slow distillation, those oils clinging to the side of the glass, running down really slowly. Again, when you put this whiskey on your palate, the same thing, those oils will be coating your palate, they'll be coating your tongue, and the flavor will last a long time. That slow, careful distillation isn't about making as much alcohol as we can. It's not about accentuating the peat. That slow distillation where we're looking for purity of spirit, that's what comes across in the glass. That peat smoke is gentle. It's not oily, it's not medicinal, it's dry, it's heather, it's a lovely dry peat smoke. And when you taste, give it some time. Allow that whiskey to sit on your palate, on your tongue, to warm. Give it a few seconds. Feel the way that high heat just kind of coats the mouth lovely, the way those flavors from the cask start to come through, that lovely citrus, that minerality in the spirit. There's no rough edges to this. No one's head has been blown off with huge levels of peat. That is a gentle, wonderful whiskey. So at 5 years old, again, we have a good spirit. This is what we're looking for when we distill at Bruichladdich. The finish is hugely long. The finish goes and goes and goes. There was a, I don't know if you guys have heard of it's a little sideline we do, a little thing we do. It's called the botanist gin. Anyone ever heard of that? Yeah? Yeah. The botanist gin is an amazing, amazing thing, but the reason we created it was because it's the only thing known to man that takes the taste of peat away. When we were drinking Octomore, we were drinking it and then you couldn't taste anything else for 2 or 3 days after. So a little bit of botanist gin afterwards just clears the planet nicely for the next one. Slightly off the story there, but that's okay. So the point one we're tasting, I can't remember if I mentioned this before, but this is a sneak preview. So this whiskey's not been released before. This is going to be the 10.1. I'm not going to look to my right, so none of the brand team, comms team are having a fit over here, going crazy. But this is a sneak peek of something we'll release later this year. So the 10.1. You guys are the first people to taste it, and that's what I tell everyone who tastes it. Okay, so you are the first ones, I promise. Okay. So a lovely little moment to taste the 0.1. Now, I know we've got a lot to get through today. A lot of celebrations to have, a lot of dancing to have, a lot of fun times to have in the courtyard. So we'll move into our next dram, which I'm really, really excited to see what you think about. So we're going to taste that 0.2. So with our numbering system, again, as I say, the 0.2 is about cask exploration. It's been something that's been really interesting to talk about with with Simon, with Jarvis, with these guys last night, talking about the origins, because when this was released in 2012, I was still at school. Would you believe? Maybe not. When this was released in 2012, a 5-year-old whiskey. It was matured in bourbon casks, then moved into sweet dessert wine casks. And it was really unusual at the time to have something out there with that flavor profile. And the whole idea, again, is to compare and contrast the 0.1, the 0.2, the casks, the influence, the flavors that you get. And it was a huge, huge difference, between the 0.1, 4.1, 4.2. And when it was bottled, we didn't bottle at all. There was one cask left. So there is only one cask of this 4.2 left over. And it sat quietly in the warehouse. We've been trying to keep Jay, where's Jay? Wherever he's gone. Jay, the warehouseman, is an Octomore fan extraordinaire. Jay, we have to keep moving the cask because Jay keeps trying to open it and drink it. So to actually get to this stage at 13 years, to have some left is quite something. And again, look at that colour. If you hold that, look at that colour. It's beautiful. So it's been in this sweet dessert wine cask for a long time, and its influence is incredible. Absolutely incredible. It's absolutely incredible. Comus was the name of this. Back in the 4.2, we gave these whiskies, because they were so special, an extra little name. So this was referred to as 4.2 Comus. Comus, if I refer to my notes here, was the god of festivities, which is rather appropriate today, revelry, and nocturnal dalliance, when I was reading this. So, I don't know, maybe Jarvis, you'd like to explain a bit of the thinking behind that? Or maybe not, I don't know. Whatever you guys get up to after the influence of this, good luck. But Comus represents anarchy and chaos. And think about the whiskey that we are drinking, this Octomore that is shaking up the whiskey industry, that is very, very different from everything else, that we have the balls to release as a 5-year-old whiskey, that we have the audacity to challenge the establishment of the whiskey industry with this Octomore, this incredible brand. This is anarchy and chaos. To anarchy and chaos, as you all sit very nicely and politely. When you're drinking these whiskies, when we talk about the age of these whiskies, it's important to spend, the older the whiskey, the longer you need to set that on your palate to open it out. So let's give this 13 years, let's give it 10 seconds to really, really open up on the palate. It's absolutely incredible, the flavors that come through there. When I was looking at this whiskey, I looked back through Jim's old tasting notes, when this was released as a 5-year-old, and it was incredible to read. And reading the tasting note, I mean, Jim's tasting notes were incredible anyway. But Jim's tasting note basically was talking about the bourbon maturation and then the secondary maturation in the dessert wine casks, and how the flavors were kind of coming together. And they weren't complete, but there was this influence from the bourbon cask, this influence from the wine cask, and there were two of them that were both present. And after 13 years, tasting this now, it is complete. Absolutely complete. It's amazing. There's so many notes, like tobacco, really, really coming from the oak. You know, there's a little dryness on the palate, again, from that French oak. The nose is just incredible. There's lots of pineapple. Again, the peat is really, really hidden here. There's pineapple, there's mango, there's this lovely, lovely sweetness. This is a whiskey that is absolutely unbelievable. And that's why Jay goes looking around the warehouse for it. That's why we have this cask on wheels, to keep it away from him. It's absolutely unbelievable. This is one of those whiskies that, and again, you should do this, just now. Warm it up in your hand. We would have put the heating on this morning, but we ran out of 50p's for the meter, so we'll just have to take what we get. But warm this up a little bit, and the aromas that start to come off this, absolutely incredible. And the peat smoke is really hidden. The peat smoke is held back. You get this lovely, lovely flavor from the oak, that lovely, lovely fruit. But then on the finish, as I'm talking now, I'm starting to get that lovely kind of dry peat smoke coming through. Absolutely incredible. Absolutely incredible. Let's look at the taste notes again. Oh, just beautiful. As beautiful as that is, at cask strength. Again, if I look back at my notes here on this whiskey, I can tell you, which is 13 years old, the ppm on this was 167. So we've gone up a level from 107 to 167. The strength of this whiskey is 57.5%. And maybe I'm a bit late in saying this, but all of the whiskeys we're tasting are cask strength, okay? So remember, today is a marathon, not a sprint. Okay, we have time. 57.5%, 13 years old, huge levels of peat, but there's amazing influence from that cask. But the flavors are complex. If you take a little bit of water, and as you do this, put a little splash in, and you see the way those oils react, and you see the way that color changes. My God, see when you that first smell with the water, you get that lovely lemon, that lovely minerality from the spirit. The peat smoke is gone. It's like magic. But when you taste, the peat smoke is back. And the way that sits on the palate, the way that goes is just absolutely beautiful. So, a really, really lovely moment to taste something from the past. But this is the great thing about Octomore. Although we can look back and see, remember the Comus, remember that 4.2, here we are 13 years old tasting this whiskey. The amazing thing about this is we're still learning, we're still going forward with this. The very first time we distilled Octomore was 2002. So the oldest whiskey we have, 18 years, 17 years this year. It's not old whiskey. We're learning all the time about this. So for us to be able to taste something that spent 13 years in that type of cask, it informs our decisions about the future. And this is what we're doing at Bruichladdich, and this is the way we are releasing whiskey. We are releasing whiskey with the 0.1, the 0.2, the 0.3, the 0.4, the 10-year-old, the OBAs. We're releasing things as we find them. We're not holding back all our information. We're not kind of sussing out what we think is the best thing to do. We're releasing these whiskies edition by edition, vintage by vintage, so you guys can taste. You guys can tell us. And that's a really nice thing. And the great thing now is, with a comms team here, Christy, our comms team here, Jane, everybody, Hugh, Robert, we've got an amazing team of people who can communicate with you all. So when we release things, tell us what you think. Not you, Scott, because you like Ardbeg, so you don't tell us what you think. But everyone else, Tell us what you think. It's a really, really nice thing that, again, in this modern age, we can release things, we can be interactive, we can talk wherever we are in the world. It's a really nice thing. We don't have to wait for this one day of the year. So the point 2, I think, is a wonderful expression. Really nice to look back, really nice to look forward and see what we do in the future. But I'm quite excited about the next dram. I would like you all to get excited with me as we taste something that is, I mean, really, we've come to this black hole. We've gone when no one's gone before. This third dram is unbelievably peaty. Okay, so we've talked about, Port Charlotte being 40 ppm, some of the other Islay whiskies being 40, 50 ppm. The first whiskey we tasted, 107. The second whiskey we've tasted, 167. The third whiskey we're going to taste is 309.1. Don't forget that 0.1, whatever you do. Very, very important. A huge, huge level of peat. Like unbelievable levels of peat. How do we manage to get that level of peat? It's just unheard of in the whiskey industry to get something this peated. But it's very special. And there's something about that special nature of this whiskey. The 0.3, as I explained earlier, is the expression where we use barley grown on Octomore Farm. So James Brown, the farmer at Octomore Farm, I'll resist the temptation to tell any jokes about James Brown, because they're terrible. No, I will resist. I mean, James is he's a lovely guy. I'm going to anyway, Michael. Yeah. So James is a great guy. For those of you who don't know James, James is the farmer at Octomore Farm, which is obviously 2 miles down the road. He's a local farmer. He supplies all the spring water we use. So the spring water in your bottles on the table is Octomore spring water. Don't drink too much. It's incredibly expensive. Okay, so we'll need some of that back. James, he supplies with the spring water. He's been involved in growing barley for us for many years, and probably going back maybe 10 years, 11 years, we started keeping his barley separate, so that we could make an Octomore whiskey with barley from Octomore Farm. And he's a very good farmer. He produces very good barley. He recently, as a farmer, won an award for being outstanding in his field. So. Thank you, good night. That's it. So yeah, James has been providing us with barley for a long time. But really, obviously with waiting for our whiskey to age, we've only ever released 4 Octomore 0.3s. The 6.3 was the very first one. 6.3 was incredible. It was 258 ppm. Then we released the 7.3. Then we released the 8.3, which we have here. At 309 ppm, and there's something that this kind of special nature of taking barley from a single field, keeping it completely separate, mashing it separately, distilling it separately, warehousing it separately, bottling it as this one entity. You get this amazing essence of a whiskey that is just purity. Whatever it is, it becomes. There's this. We can't blend with anything else. We only have what we get from the field. Whatever James provides us. So the 0.3s have been really interesting, and I think the concept of that provenance is fantastic, and the fact that 2 of the most heavily peated whiskies we've released have come from Octomore. This Octomore of Octomore. There's something kind of magical about that. There's something quite interesting about that. So that concept of provenance, I think, is something there's a distillery we love. To be able to go back to the field, to the farm, to the variety, to the farmer, to the cask type, and see that whole picture is fascinating. And again, the nature of it being very, very small. I remember when we first released the 6.3, it was an exciting moment for me because I was starting to work more with Jim on the cask selection and creating whiskies. And okay, let's go and create the 6.3, this Octomore of Octomore. It'd be incredible. And so we looked at how much we would need to do as a release, how much we would do, maybe, I can't remember what it was, maybe 9,000, 12,000 bottles, relatively small. Okay, so how many casks do we need for that? And okay, that's all the casks we have of the 6.3. So we went to look at the casks, and half of them were in first fill American bourbon casks. The other half was in Syrah wine casks. So not many options for blending then. Not maybe what we would traditionally do, but at the time, in 2009, Jim had filled these casks thinking, let's see what happens. You know, what's the worst that can happen? So basically we had no option but to blend everything together to create this whiskey. And wouldn't you know it, a little bit of karma in there somewhere. Jim's a great believer in karma, that if you do all the right things, you get good results. And when you think about what we've done, we've taken, you know, the product of one field, we have kept it completely separate, which is very, very difficult to do with all the barley coming through the drying shed down at Octafad, with, you know, going up to beds maltings to get that malting process done, to bring it back, to then mash it, to ferment it, to distill it, to warehouse it, keep that separate. It takes a lot of effort to do all that kind of thing. You know, that's why nobody else does it. It's only us. To do that, it was really interesting, and then, you know, to think about the care and the attention we've taken at every stage to create that whiskey, to make that whiskey, and, you know, have no option but to use everything we had, and for it to turn out as an amazing whiskey, absolutely incredible. And I think there's something about you know, having that ability to you know, make a decision to do something, you know, whatever risk it may be, but if you do it for the right reasons, you hold those principles of, you know, slow distillation, of quality ingredients. If you hold those at the front, then you're going to be okay. And that's what we get each time with the 0.3. So, the 8.3, 8.3 plus 2, so this is 7 years old, distilled in 2011, 309.1 ppm. Again, if we know anything about whiskey and it being too peaty, then, you know, a 309 ppm whiskey, there should be smoke coming out the glass here, and, you know, it should be too hot to hold, you know. But look at it, the color's beautiful, absolutely beautiful. A range of different types of casks, about 50% fresh bourbon, and then the other 50%, again, a mixture of different red wine casks that I didn't write down. So I'm not going to tell you, because I can't remember, but that's okay. But again, what we've done is built from, or learned from that first experience with the 6.3, where actually it's okay to do something, you know, to put a lot of effort into something, a lot of whiskey into wine casks, and create something that actually, when you nose that, where is the peat? There's so little peat here. The influence of the casks is incredible. That high strength, again, the strength on this at the moment, if you bear with me, 60.7% alcohol. Hugely strong, but again, on the nose, it's subtle. You're not getting this attack of alcohol. It's beautifully soft. It's beautifully fragrant. It's so floral. You know, it's got those wonderful characters of Bruichladdich spirit, and very little peat. So we're not making a whiskey with Octomore that is just about the numbers. Many years ago, you know, we used to talk about, my God, Octomore is going to knock your socks off. It's going to be incredible. It isn't. It is just subtle. It is beautiful. It is elegant. The balance of flavor is incredible. So let's have a little taste. Is that not incredible? That fruit, that sweetness, it's like peach. A peach dipped in sugar, that lovely syrup you get in tinned peaches. Absolutely incredible. Creme brulee, lovely creme brulee. And do you know what? Now, I'm starting to get that smoke. Now it's starting to come. And I always remember when we made this whiskey, we did the tasting note. I did the tasting note. And I was sitting at my desk, writing the tasting notes. I'd done the 8.1. I'd done the 8.2. It was a lovely sunny day. You know, I had to turn away from the window so that I wasn't getting blinded by the sun. I tasted the 8.1, 8.2, and then we moved on to the 8.3, and the dark clouds started rolling in. At 309 ppm, this is the only whiskey that, again, you get this lovely fruit, that lovely flavor from the oak to begin with, and then that peat comes. And with these huge levels of peat that we talk about with Octomore, this is the only time I've ever felt like there's a thunderstorm, there's something too much with this peat at this 309. So, hopefully you're all experiencing that now, where you can feel that peat, that coming, that darkness, that bitterness, that peat smoke in there. It's not iodine-y, it's not medicinal, it's still dry, but it's really, really heavy. It's incredible. So this whiskey, it had to be, in an Octomore lineup, this had to be in here. 309 ppm, it's huge. But again, as I say, we're not distilling just for peat. It's about cask selection, it's about distillation, it's about provenance, it's about vintage, it's about this being a moment in time. We cannot recreate this. No matter what we do, we will never, ever make this whiskey ever again. You think of that 6.3, 7.3, 8.3, 9.3, the 10.3 to come. They are all individual. They are all individual vintages. They are from different fields. They are different varieties of barley. The peat smoke, the level is different every time. Is that not incredible that we do not seek to give you something that is consistent, that is the same all the time? Who wants to drink the exact same thing all the time? Anyone? No? You want to experience new things, try new things? That's what we do with this expression. With all the expressions we do, we're giving you something different all the time. So although it may be disappointing that we can't taste this again, we have to get into the mindset of thinking about the future, about what the next one's going to bring, what we learn in the future. So the way we release Octomore takes a lot of courage, but I think it's hugely, hugely important that we do it. Shall we move on? Mystery dram number 4. Okay? Dram number 4, you should all have in this glass here. No, okay. Okay. Dram number 4 is our virgin oak, the 0.4. Dram 4, the 0.4. Let's take a look at the color on this for a second. So virgin oak, obviously a cask that's never been used for anything else before, comes straight from the cooperage to us to fill with our spirit or do with what we will. The color is incredible. Absolutely incredible. Look at that. I mean, I know it's maybe not the most best light for looking at things, but surely you can see that as dark and rich and incredible. Oh, the nose. The strength on this, 63.5% alcohol. I think it's important to mention that. It's very, very strong. It's very, very exciting. So the 0.4, the virgin oak kind of experience, if you will, we've only ever released twice. The 7.4 and the 8.4. So we want to explore the options and the varieties available with virgin oak. Usually as a whiskey distiller, as kind of mentioned before, particularly in Scotland, we're quite cheap. We don't like spending money, which you'll be pleased to know, Simon. I still don't like spending money. Well, Vanner, yeah, we don't like spending money at all. If we can buy in casks that somebody else has used before, the bourbon industry, we're buying casks from them, huge numbers of casks come into Scotland every year. We're using sherry casks, we're using wine casks, we're using lots of casks. If you ask anyone about virgin oak in the whiskey industry, they'd tell you, oh, no, it's too powerful. It's too powerful. When you make spirit from barley, it's so subtle, it's so soft, it's so gentle, it can't stand up to virgin oak. It just wouldn't work. Well, that's all very well that other people might say that, but we're Bruichladdich Distillery, we're going to find out for ourselves. So over the years, we've been working with coopers, we've been working with cooperages, we've been filling spirit into different types of casks and learning more. And as we learn more, what do? We release these expressions so you guys can taste them too. So you guys can tell us what you think. Not you, Scott. I will ask you what you think about this one later on. So this is something quite interesting. This is the virgin oak experience, or virgin oak expression, we've released before, 7.4, 8.4, have quite complicated stories behind them. We want to communicate how that whiskey's been put together. This one's a little more simple. The whiskey we have here is going to be 10.4. So again, sorry for giving away all the secrets, comms team, brand team. This will be released very, very soon. 10.4 is a Octomore that was distilled in 2016. So that makes it 3 years old, just by a month. So a very, very young whiskey. And of course we know that, if it's 3 years, it's too young to drink. So what are we doing? But let's think again. The color is incredible. The nose, beautiful. 63.5% alcohol, but when I nose that, there's nothing aggressive on there at all. As we've been learning about what type of casks work, what type of casks don't, what works well with that spirit, we know that Octomore spirit, as delicate and as beautiful it is hugely powerful. So we've matched this. I've matched this with some virgin French oak, 300-litre cask of French Limousin oak. It's had a very heavy toast to give lots of dried fruit, which we know works well with Octomore, to give a roundness to the spirit. And over the last few years, last 3 years, we've been going to the casks and checking and looking and seeing. And this whiskey is ready to drink. And we all know that we want to challenge convention. There's in the back there, the challenge to convention that is Octomore. We want to do things differently, so I'm really excited about releasing a 3-year-old whiskey because everyone thinks it's far too young. You can't release a single malt at 3 years. That's crazy. It brings me on to another point before we taste this whiskey about what we do here. And I think in any other company, if Simon, Douglas, wherever he is there, if they, as the guys running the company, if they heard me say, I'm going to release a 3-year-old whiskey, in most other companies, there would be psychiatric tests, there would be HR involvement, there would be gardening leave, there would be things going on. Well, probably me, I think, was the point. So yeah, there would be questions asked like, what on earth is going on here? But none of that. There is complete confidence, I hope, just checking. But to be able to release this, that actually around the company that everyone's excited, everyone gets interested in the fact that we can do this. You taste that whiskey. You want to taste this whiskey with me? Let's taste this whiskey. Oh. You feel that power? You feel that presence of the oak? It's unbelievable. And you can feel it right now, just opening and opening. The flavor's developing and changing. You feel that dryness of the oak, that texture on your palate. It's absolutely incredible. So, this whiskey is ready. If we leave this in the cask longer, we've ruined that spirit. That peat smoke that's coming through now on the palate, it's unbelievable. The ppm on this, the level of peat smoke, if I just double check before I say the numbers, 88. Very, very low. But the way that wood brings out, that heavy toast brings out those flavors, you get that lovely kind of dried fruit, that apricot, it's absolutely unbelievable. It's so good that people have to leave the room. We've blown people's minds today. That's absolutely incredible. Of course, we'll wait for them to come back, of course. But no, we've got time, haven't we? We've got time. No, it's an amazing experience and something that we want to challenge, we want to do things differently, and to release a 3-year-old whiskey with that amazing color, with that amazing flavor, that amazing experience, it's absolutely ready. And it goes back to those fundamental things that I talked about before. If you distill really well, really carefully, really slowly to get amazing texture and flavor in your spirit, and then you use really good casks, it's just a matter of paying attention and putting it into the bottle at the right time. So this, absolutely stunning. Hugely, hugely complex, but 3 years old. And because it's 3 years old, that's enough for most people to say, you can't drink it, but experience it. This is the thing with Octomore. If you forget what you think you know about whiskey, if you forget all the things that you are told and just taste, that is the event horizon. That is the moment. Taste. Be the judge yourself. Don't listen to what other people say. Taste it. If you don't like it, you can leave. I think everybody likes it, so that's good. That's good. But this is really important. It's a really important point that doing something like this, challenging that convention, making you think differently about whiskey, taste it. Be the judge yourself, and here we experience some amazing whiskies. And that's why we release whiskey in the way we do. So, let's dive in here a little bit. Guys, I'm sorry. I was going to wait for you, but they told me not to. So, sorry. It's hugely exciting, this whiskey. And the notes, there's just so much going on. There's that toasted oak is bringing through lots of dried fruit. As I say, that kind of roundness on the palate. You get lots of kind of dried apricot. The peat smoke is there again, but it's really the oak that's kind of dominating at the moment. We have another little taste. You feel the way that spirit is so sweet, and yet has that dryness. The oak is giving so much, has that dryness on the palate, and then bang, you get that lovely hit of oak. You get that lovely hit of malt. You taste that malted barley sugar in there, and the smoke is wrapped around it. And there is a lovely thing here. I know this whiskey isn't perfect. There is a note in here that is it's like rubber, like plasticine. For those, anyone from the UK will know what plasticine has, that distinct smell. I don't know if it travels. I don't know if anyone else has plasticine, but it's a really kind of rubbery note, and it's in there. And that's something you get with young peated whiskey. So this is telling the story. This is telling you what it is, but it works. It really, really works. It's not something you see when you mature Octomore 4 or 5 or 6 or 7 or 8 years. So it tells the story of what it is, and that's absolutely what we want it to be. It's a great whiskey as well to demonstrate something really, really important if you're watching at home and doing the bingo. Okay. So, the band of gold. Does everyone in the room know, have you seen Jim, myself, anyone from Bruichladdich doing the band of gold before? We know what the band of gold is, yeah? 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 Okay. For those of you who don't, you want to do it with me? Yeah? Everyone do this with me? So you take a glass, take a bottle, take whatever you've got that's filled with water, and we'll tilt the glass a little bit, because what we're going to do is look at the oils in the whiskey. And this is easy enough to do with this. If you give a bit of movement in the glass, you can see the way that it just coats the glass again, the way the oils, the legs come down. If we take a bit of water, and we add it very, very slowly down the side of the glass, and you guys have all got steady hands, I'm sure. Yeah, yeah. You've had a couple of drams. You should have steady hands now. If we add this very, very gently down the side, you see the water go kind of underneath the whiskey, and it goes hazy and cloudy as the oils and the water react at the bottom of the glass. And what you should have, when you've finished, and this whiskey being so dark is perfect, a lovely band of gold at the top. So a really kind of dark band at the top here, and the water has kind of gone underneath. The oil has risen to the top. By gently sliding that water underneath, you get the band of gold, and that's the natural oil, barley, that's come to the top there. So of course with all our whiskies, we even kind of forget to talk about it now because it's so commonplace. We never chill filter our whiskey. We never artificially color. But when you have casks of the quality that we use, you don't need artificial color. Why would you add something to a whiskey to make it look like something it isn't? It makes no sense to us whatsoever. But the oil, that lovely dark band on the top, that's the oil from the barley. That's giving you that amazing texture, that longevity of flavor. So by doing this, you get to see firsthand the oil in the whiskey. For those of you who managed to do this successfully, who haven't drunk everything, if you dip your finger in the oil at the top, give that a shake, that will not drop off. I appreciate you guys in the back can't see what I'm doing here. I just look like an idiot holding my finger out, but there's a drop of oil on there that is not going to fall. That's why you guys should all be doing this. If you take some from the bottom, it drips off because it's water. It's not as viscous. It just drips away. It's a really simple thing to do, but it really demonstrates, again, the quality of what we do, how we do things. And when you mix that back together and you see those oils come through, we're talking about a whiskey that has all the natural aspects left in there. And again, adding a little bit of water to this whiskey, bang, that smoke comes out. Absolutely incredible. So what do you think? Is 3-year-old whiskey too young to drink? Good. Good. You're all on this side of the black hole now. You're all with us. That's what we need. Okay. So the burger stall now has, the coals have been lit. There's burgers frying away. Everyone's getting a little bit hungry for lunch, so we've only got 2 more drams. So that's probably another hour or so. Okay, listening to me. We're going to taste something. Again, we've tasted some amazing drams, but this is the next one we're going to taste, dram number 5, the Festival 2019 dram. I'll tell you what, I had some fun putting this together. So we knew this year, Octomore year. We wanted to put Octomore in the spotlight, talk about Octomore, get people excited about what it is we're doing, kind of spread the message. And this is what you guys all have to do now. You are now disciples. You have to go out and spread the message of Octomore and explain to people how we do things, why we do things. To put Octomore in the spotlight, this year I felt it was really important to kind of go beyond, not just do the same old things we've done before, but to continue to express ourselves and do something to really push the boundaries. It's what Octomore is all about. Somebody once asked Jim years ago, why do you make Octomore? Because nobody else would. You've got to push the boundaries. You've got to keep learning. If you keep doing what everyone else does, what do you learn? So no one else would do this. Only us. So let's continue to push the boundaries. So this is going to be, the festival bottle this year will be the oldest Octomore we've ever released at 12 years old. And that doesn't sound like it's very old. But when you consider we release Octomore generally at 5 years old, maybe a couple of 10-year-old expressions now and again, because Octomore is so hard to create. We have huge reserves of Octomore. It's a very, very limited product to make. Octomore is absolutely, as a brand, how many other distilleries would give you something as a brand that is never the same each time you release it? That's a bit strange to think about that, isn't it? That you would never have a consistency in there, that every release is going to be different. So this had to be different as well. So let's go forward. This is a 12-year-old Octomore. It is bottled, if I check my notes, at 55.7% alcohol. It is 162.6 ppm. And the casks I selected for this have been maturing their whole life 2 miles away in Port Charlotte. There were 2 Pedro Jimenez sherry casks, sherry butts, and 2 Oloroso sherry butts that have been combined. The power of this whiskey is incredible. Absolutely incredible. On the nose, you really get that hit from the sherry. It's absolutely amazing. You get that lovely, sweet, dried fruit. That smoke is really, really tamed back. Again, we're talking a heavy peated whiskey here, but it's really, really tamed back as the sherry is really at the forefront. Now, because I'm really prepared, this morning at 5:30, I was doing some more tasting notes on this. I'm that prepared, that thorough. Some more tasting notes. I hadn't left it to the last minute, I promise. But I was going through, just reassuring myself, looking at this whiskey, and as I kind of sat, looking out the window to get the light, watching the rain beating down on the window, wondering when it'll stop. If you give this a bit of movement in the glass, hold up and look, it takes forever for the legs to break. Absolutely forever. Which tells you about the viscosity, it tells you about the texture of this whiskey. So this morning, there I was watching, looking at the watch, thinking I've got to finish this speech soon. Really, no, these legs need to break. Okay, they're coming. But watch that now. They're so slow running down the glass. The texture is incredible on this whiskey. So when we taste it, we know what this is going to be. The depth. This whiskey is huge. Considering what we've just tasted, something that virgin oak with that amazing dominance of the amazing power of the oak. Tasting this, when you taste this, let this sit on your palate for, listen, count to 10. Give it a good while. Let it warm up. Let it open up. That is amazing. That sweetness, that fruit, that depth of flavor. And it just keeps going and opening. And that sweetness, that from the sherry cask, where that sits on the palate for so long. Absolutely amazing. You can really taste that sweet Pedro Jimenez style, that really sweet Pedro Jimenez flavor. And it's still there. And then you start to get the oloroso. You start to get a bit of nuttiness coming through. That minerality in the spirit again. The flavor here is incredible, and it tells a story of where it comes from. So I was so excited about putting this together. Again, looking back to the stocks of Octomore we had, what can we create for the festival day? This is amazing. This is a beautiful dram. And that's what I wanted to have. We've talked about something, all these drams are amazing, but we're able to talk about something unique with them. This one isn't about making a point or telling you something to educate you. This is just a beautiful, beautiful whiskey. Very well put together, beautifully balanced, amazing texture. Even now, I've still got that lovely sweetness, that lovely oiliness in the spirit coating my palate. Absolutely incredible. So, thank you very much. Thank you very much indeed. Oh. Thanks for coming, Michael. Thank you. It's a beautiful whiskey, and I think this is what sometimes we need to remind ourselves of these things, that we can't just be lecturing, we can't just be talking about things and making whiskies. It's always got to be good. And they are always good. We're always making good whiskey, but sometimes we just focus on making something that tastes beautiful, and that's what we have in this glass here. So, we might need to rinse our palates a little bit here. Have a little glass of water. Remember, not too much. This water is very expensive. Have as much whiskey as you like, but the water is very expensive. The last whiskey we're going to have is, again, hugely exciting, as they all are. The last whiskey we're going to taste is something that, as a black art style of Octomore, is something that over the years I've been looking to kind of work on and create. And the Masterclass is a great place to do this, because we can create something, we can let you guys taste it, and it's just something that we're working on, and it's a nice bit. It's fun. It's good. It's great fun, for me. I recognize when I make things like this that I have a hugely privileged position, and pretty regularly people say to me, "You've got the best job in the world. You just drink whiskey all day. It's fantastic." They don't know I've got to deal with these guys up here. Ladies and gentlemen, the warehouse crew. That's far too much clapping for them. Stop. Immediately. Don't encourage them, please. I'm in a hugely privileged position to be the head distiller at Bruichladdich Distillery, and I recognize that. And this is an amazing whiskey for me to stop and think about what we do, how we do it. And I'm a guy from Islay. I grew up here. I started rolling barrels and needed a job. Here I am, kind of 15 years later as head distiller. I'm incredibly fortunate to be in the position I am. And so being able to create something like this is a lovely way to kind of show you guys a bit of love for all the support you give us. You know, it's a lovely, lovely thing. So this is something that, again, we cannot make on a scale. This is from casks that are incredibly rare. Usually I wouldn't say anything about a black art and tell you the story. I would tell you nothing about the whiskey except the age. The youngest whiskey in here is from 2011. And the strength, which, if you will allow me to refer to my notes, is 59.5%. That's all we can tell you. So again, another high-strength whiskey. But we'll sip away at this. I wouldn't usually tell you much about it, but the reason we can't release, I'm not going to release any of this whiskey, is that the backbone, the structure of this whiskey comes from one of only 2 casks we have from that very first distillation of Octomore in 2002. So I'm not giving them away yet, okay? Those guys are special. They're staying for later on. But a lovely thing to be able to share with you guys, who've given us so much support. You've come a long way to be with us today, despite the weather. It's an amazing thing that you guys do this, that you come and support us. And so, thank you. This Stram, this OBA 2, is for you guys, okay? Slanja. Give this a bit of time. Let this open up. It is hugely complex. It's not got that bomb, that power of the last couple of drams we've had. There's a lot of complexity in here. The ppm on this, because we're coming from a range of different casks, is impossible to calculate. But it's above 80, I can tell you that. That's the minimum for Octomore, of course. After a whiskey like this is huge. After a tasting like this, to be honest, I mean, has anyone ever done like an Octomore tasting where you've only tasted Octomore before? Yeah? A few? Not many? I've only done a couple. So it's quite unusual. And after something like this, a whiskey like this, you guys will need a holiday. I know you guys are on holiday here, but you need a holiday. After doing this, and the stress and the worry that my wife, I'm sure, can attest to over the last week or so, I will also need a holiday. I mentioned last year that we had a holiday planned, which was 2 weeks in Port Haven. So, of course, my wife Amy here is the luckiest woman on Isla to be taken to Port Haven for 2 weeks. But what could be better than 2 weeks in Port Haven? I'll tell you this. This year, we are having 1 week in Port Haven. So, amazing whiskey. I hope so. An amazing whiskey. Again, when we think about the nose and the level of fruit and the combination of casks, which again will remain a mystery, it's hugely complex. It needs time. We don't have huge amounts of time today for this. But let's take a little minute to think about this. And I want to talk about something that, again, when I'm making these whiskies and thinking about what we're doing here, it's quite a reflective time. And the business here, what we do at Bruichladdich, there's so much going on. It's really, really fast-paced. We always talk about Isla time and things just happen when they happen. But, we're running a really, kind of fast-paced business here. There's so much going on because we put so much into it. This is one of the things I want to talk about. Again, when I talk about the privilege of my position, where I am today, when I think about this company and where we are and what we do, I think it's worth noting a few things. That what we do, the belief we have in each other and our skills and as a company is fantastic. The support we get from Remy Cointreau, of course, the support we get to make whiskey here and the way that we do is phenomenal. And when you think back to 2001, this distillery and being opened and the dreams and become a reality now, what we're doing is incredible. And you may have heard of some of the kind of announcements we've had this year where we have bought some land next to the distillery, which is just incredible. And what we're going to do with this land, this 30 acres, this croft next door, is start to explore barley ourselves. For years we've been talking about barley and its importance. It's the fundamental ingredient in whiskey. We've got to pay attention to it. We've got to focus on how we farm and on all of these things. You'd be amazed to know that the recommended growing list for varieties of barley in Scotland is generally based on varieties that are bred down on the east coast of England. So east coast of England to the west coast of Scotland, they are like different worlds. We speak different languages. Everything is really different. So if we can take something on ourselves, growing, a stone's throw from where we're sitting today, we have trial plots of barley. We have 60 different varieties of barley growing in the soil, in Islay soil, so we can explore, the climate, which, as you know, is beautifully sunny and dry and arid. But the climate here is different. We're right by the sea, we've got the wind, we've got different soil, so let's take things on ourselves. Let's see what grows well here so we can support the 17, 18 farmers who grow barley for us in Islay. Let's take this on. That's an incredibly ambitious thing for a distillery to do. We don't have to do it. We could just phone up the maltings and order 4,000 tons next year, please. But that's not the way we do things. And to be part of a company that works like that makes me hugely proud. Oh, thank you. That was only point one. Okay, there's a few more. Another announcement we have made recently, you may or may not know about, is our intention to build a malting facility here to continue to mature. Oh, absolutely. So next year, you guys can all come, bring your overalls with you, bring spades, bring bricks, cement, whatever, bring anything you can, we'll build it together. But no, our intention is that we'll build a malting facility here to be able to make a 100% Islay whiskey. At the moment, isn't that good? Isn't that a good thing? But think about what we do. We're growing so much barley on the island, and it is dried here, stored here. It goes up to Inverness, malted, and come back. Then we distill it here. We mature it here. Again, the investment we have from Remy to be able to build warehousing here, because we believe that maturing our spirit on Islay for its whole life makes this a real Islay whiskey. That is fundamental. So we're building more warehouses. But to be able to close that loop, that last part of the jigsaw, to be able to malt our own barley here is going to be an amazing thing. So we've always been ambitious at this distillery. We've always had beliefs and principles and things that we live by, we die by. And that makes me incredibly proud, as I say, to be able to stand here and talk about what it is we do. There are no secrets. There is transparency on everything except this. But to be able to work for a company like this, is incredible. I'm hugely proud. And I think you guys are all here. You believe in what we do, I hope. We've taken you through the black hole, and you are now with us. You are one of us. And to be able to support us in the future, of course, I think it's really important for us to, with this dram, that's for you guys, to raise a glass, to Remy Cointreau, to Valerie and the team, to everyone here, for the work we do and for the support to continue to do what we believe is important in single malt whiskey. So, everybody, Slanger. So, thank you very much. It's at times like this I wonder why I get so nervous about this, but this is the point of the afternoon where I'm going to say a few thank yous. So, thank you to the boys here for getting everything ready here, and Joanne and the team here for getting everything organized here. Absolutely, thank you guys. For all the comms team, for everybody that you've done here. To Isla McEachran and the boys for what we are now referring to as the huge erection in Warehouse 12 here. Um, so well done, guys. To the whole Bruichladdich team, today is going to be amazing. Today is going to be huge. It doesn't matter if it's raining outside, if it's sunshine, it doesn't matter. We're going to have a great day anyway. We're going to celebrate some amazing whiskey. We've got great bands to listen to. Thank you guys for coming as well. Have a great day. And thank you very much for listening. Thank you.